Greetings, all Shardvixen here, and I'm really cold. It's not cold here, but I'm cold, like burr cold. My hair's not. My hair, I put it up yesterday. It's still not dry. That's how cold it is, I guess. All right, today is Know Thyself, and if you're new to this, read the description down below. That's all I can say. Read the description down below. I don't know how long this one will go. Maybe it won't go long. I always say that, and then they go really long because I ramble and stuff like that. So today is Know Thyself, and it's an author or book, and it's going to be an author. It's Patricia Briggs. So Patricia Briggs was born in 1965. She's the same age as me. So I don't know if that means that there are similarities of memories, like of how it is to be a female and to be a creative female writer. I don't know. I mean, some people have made that concept, but I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, so I have this habit of when I'm looking for something new to read. Before I was on the internet more often than not, I would cruise the library and look for things to read. And I came across this book called Dragon Bones. Now, I like things about dragons. At the time, I've read like books by Barbara Hampling. She's got some good books about dragons and stuff in there. And of course, Anne McCaffrey, which I'll talk about. So I thought, oh, I'll take a look at it. And I really liked it. It's about a young man in a country, I think it's like Hugar. It's Huaog, Hugon. And his father is the king, and he's the firstborn son, and everybody thinks he's a fool, and he's purposely done that because his father's kind of abusive to him in the aspect of how a king would want his prince to be. Anyway, so he discovers these dragon bones that are underneath the city and realizes that people are going to want them because originally the dragons lived in that area, and the dwarfs had come to the dragons, and then when the dragons died, everything left. But when the dragons were alive, the city was like hopping and bopping, and people were like, woo! And so he becomes king. And I like this story because you go through the struggles with him of trying to become a king, because everyone saw him as a fool, and he has to protect his city, he has to protect his kingship, because they're going to try to rule him as being too dim-witted to be king, and so he has to show that he's not, and he's a mage on top of that. There's two books to it, and you can read the first one and get into it, but you can't just pick up the second one. You kind of need to know a little bit about the first one. The books came out in 2002, and I was trying to think. I have the hardest time with time, like memories of how old I am and stuff. So I was trying to figure out. I turned 40 in 2005. So in 2002, I'd be like 38. And I was trying to remember what I was doing in 2002. I know that I graduated with an AA in 2001. So in 2002, I was probably making the commute, a 90-minute commute to go to a university to study to become a special ed teacher. That was what I was doing in 2002. And because my son wasn't born until 2004. So I was in the middle of a relationship that I really kind of enjoyed. I know that really kind of enjoyed. I'd have to say that for 70 to 80% of the time, I really enjoyed the relationship. By the time 2005 came along, I did not enjoy the relationship anymore. It had become abusive, and so I had to leave the relationship. But we read a lot of the same books, and I don't think he read Dragon Bones. I don't know. I bought the book. I liked it so much, I bought it. I bought Dragon Bones and Dragon Blood. And then she came out so that was it. I didn't read too much. She has another book called Hobbs something that I have, but I don't remember if I read it or not. Sometimes I pick up books and I put them away because of the same artist or something, and I didn't get to it. So I don't remember that one very well, but I do remember my daughter at the time had started to read a lot of the same books that I had read, and she was like, "Have you read this werewolf series?" Now, so I haven't talked about it yet, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer was like the thing that we watched since my daughter was small to my daughter was. I know people like, you let your daughter watch. Yeah, I did. It was on TV, so it couldn't have been too bad. Um, and she was a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer all through high school. We started watching it, when she was 5. It ended, I think she was 5. It ended when she was 15. I mean, that's a big impact in somebody's life, but I will talk about that as a TV series down the road. Um, so anyway, because of that, I was very into witches. I was anyway, but witches, werewolves, things like that. And Patricia Briggs came out with a series called the Mary Thompson series, but the first one was called Moon Call, and it was about a shapeshifter, a Native American shapeshifter who shifted into coyote, and she was had been given to from her mother to the werewolf pack in the Tri Cities, and so I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I'm not. I mean, I love werewolf stories. I like shapeshifter stories. And at the time, if I remember right, I was reading a lot of Linda Hamilton. I can't talk. Linda Hamilton, who does the Anita Witch Hunter series. No, not Witch Hunter. What is she? She's a vampire killer. So it kind of overlaps from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'll talk about her too because her stories get a little odd. They're erotic, supernatural. Anyway, so I was like, oh, I love the shapeshifter stories that Anita meets, and it would be kind of interesting to. And I wrote a couple of shapeshifter stories myself, which someday I will share. I say that every time we talk about writing, but I will slowly get there. I've got all the time in the world, except for when I'm sleeping. Um, so I picked up Mercy Thompson, and I liked her name. I thought that's a really cool name. And you start reading the book, and the thing about Mercy that I like is she's a very good standalone hero. She doesn't. I mean, she has friends and other things like that, but she develops into getting to know herself as she is moving through the story, and that's always a really good kind of thing. And it's a good first point start book for the whole kind of series, the Tri-City series that she has. So you have Mercy, and then from that you learn about the werewolves, because Mercy's not a werewolf. She shapeshifts into a coyote, because her father is. She doesn't say it, but is basically the god Coyote, the trickster god, and you don't find that out for a couple of books in, but her father that she knew was the manifestation of that god, uh, is a rodeo, I want to say bronco rider, but he might be a cowboy clown. I'm not sure, but it talks about it in the book. And then she never seen him, and then her and her mother couldn't get along because of her shape shifting and other things, and so she ends up with the werewolf pack, and as you read through the story, she has a very love-hate relationship with the alpha of the pack, Bran, and so that goes through the story, weaves through the series, but the only reason that you need to know that is because then she ends up falling in love, and it's a really interesting relationship. It's one of those relationships where they rub each other. They seem like they rub each other wrong, but they're not really rubbing each other wrong. And that develops into a relationship that she doesn't really want to be a part of because she tries to stay away from werewolves, because everyone had their own idea what it meant to be a coyote shapeshifter, like how that would play out with werewolves. Some people thought she'd be able to have babies, and other people were like, so there was all these weird, odd things that were going on. And then, so she ends up with the alpha of the area where she's at, and so that's how the story goes. So then you start getting this not just about Mercy, but her relationships with her family and the pack and the people in it that don't really like her either. And so the story is really good in that, but each story stands by themselves. So it's like you're getting a glimpse into her relationships, but you're also reading about the story, which is really a really great way to do it, because people fall in love with characters and they want to see the characters grow. But at the same time, they don't really, I myself and other people, but most people I think want the characters to go on forever. They're connected to them. It's like Buffy Vampire Slayer was a big deal when it stopped and people were really upset, or Star Trek or Star Wars or any of those things. When you get to the end of the story, there's always, well, what happens afterwards? And if they die, well, that's the thing. That's like NCO's story in Assassin's Creed. They died. So, and then she wrote Alpha and Omega, which started out as a short story in a different story, and there's a short story in a series of books the very first time that they meet. But it's Anne and I can't think of the son's name right now. The son of the enforcer of the pack, of the big werewolf pack. And it's a very good story. She was abused, and they forced her to become a werewolf without telling her why they forced her to become a werewolf. And then she gets away from the bad werewolves, or just werewolves who are making poor choices, I guess. They're not evil, really. And she hooks up with Charles. Charles, that's his name. And the journey as her being abused and trying to come to a connection with Charles and becoming his wife is a really very interesting story. Where was I, though, when I was reading these stories? When I started reading those stories, Mercy came out, of course, in 2006. I'm looking at notes, if you're wondering. I should probably not bow my head. Look at my hair. It's so pretty. It came out in 2006. I was in the midst of a court cases with custody of my son. The relationship had become so toxic and abusive that I was in fear of my life. And so I needed a strong character to kind of connect to, I think. And I started finding those in books, and I wasn't really playing a lot of video games at the time. But in my books, I wasn't reading a lot of comic books anymore. So I think the books were really where I was centering my time and my effort. I'm sure I was watching TV, and I sure was watching movies. Was a big avid collector of DVDs. I mean, before that it was VHSs, but DVDs. I have quite a few. And if I remember right, probably around 2006, I was moving, or had moved, for the first time in a long time, all by myself. It was just me and my kids. It was my son. Let's see, he would have been 2, so we hadn't moved yet. In 2006, my son would have been 2. We moved when he was 4, out to Shasta Lake City. Summit City is a part of Shasta Lake City. And we moved out there, and I was struggling to make a connection between my life. I turned 40. Wasn't a big deal turning 40 for me, but it was kind of a stepping stone of, like, where did I need to go? I had to quit school because of the complications with the relationship and my son and stuff like that was going on. Things that were going on in my life, I had to quit school. I was working 3 part-time jobs at that time, and struggling to figure out what I wanted to do. Now, I know that I went back to school, but I don't think I went back to school then. I don't think I went back to school until my son was in school. because I had started the night classes because I was struggling to keep my jobs, which is a classic example for me in my life. But so Patricia Briggs' stories connected with me, and they gave me things that I could connect to emotionally during a time that I was struggling to find out who I was in where I wanted to go with my life. Um, my life has been wrapped up in a lot of pain and physical pain and mental pain, which now knowing I have fibromyalgia, I probably had all through that, and that was probably really problematic for me. Um, but not knowing it at the time, just, barreling your way through it, trying to get through. I love the stories. I like Mercy's stories usually end up, with a pretty good happy ever after to them. Um, the character is a very upbeat kind of personality. She has a good thoughts patterns in her head that make you really walk away feeling like she'd be a good person to have as a friend. She'd be somebody that you could rely on. And I think that was probably what I needed most was people I could rely on. I didn't have a lot of them. I still don't. I mean, for the most part, I've met a lot of people online, really great people who are very supportive and help me out, but they're not people here in my life, in my real life. It's just my daughter, and that's pretty much it here. My sister, I could, but she's not here either. She's, in California. And I have a friend, I have some friends that are not here either. They're in California. But when you think about those connections that you make, that sometimes you need, if not on the outside, something on the inside that's going to help you get a better grip on life. And I feel that art does that for us. I feel that books, TV, games, everything that we use to sometimes just give ourselves a push up to make our existence in this realm a little more easier and give us ideals that are being shared in a common trait is a good thing. And that's why I like art. That's why I talk about it. That's why Know Thyself is surrounded in that. I'm going to be starting a new topic, one. It's called Bits of Me. And it's kind of going to be a timeline of my life and memories. And I'm going to talk about stuff. And I'm going to mix it in there with my other topic ones. Because it's going to be a little more, it's not going to be a rambling one. It's really going to have a little more, like these do, structure to them. For as much structure as I can get. Anyway, so that's it. If you get a chance, pick up Patricia Briggs. I would start with Dragon Bones first. Unless you love werewolves, then I would go with the Mercy Thompson. I know some people don't like to read about women, and I know some people don't like to read just men stories. Most of the men in Patricia Briggs stories are really, unless they're the villains, of course, but even the villains are really solid kind of characters. You can kind of really get into the characters. I think the only one maybe I have an issue with, and that's just because I may have not really paid much attention to him, and I'm not really into vampires, is Stefan the Vampire. But he was kind of a silly character when she first started writing him. He became more serious as you go along in the storylines. But that's it. It's the end of Know Thyself. Real quick, I am working on my Patreon. It'll be up pretty soon with tiers and everything, and you guys can decide if you want to join. Don't think that I'm telling you that because you have to join. The Patreon, the website, the Discord are all going to be connected. You can earn points. And my streams. And you can earn points, and the store will be set up in Streamlabs where you can turn in points. It's kind of coming together, but there's some bits and pieces that make it a little hard. So I have to figure out. I know that you can trade the points in for perks, so I just have to figure out how to get the perks to work for that. But right now, it's money is the issue, so that's the only reason that it's not up yet. But I just want to tell you really quick, The tiers are based on canines. So dollar tier is going to be wolves, not wolves, hounds. So I think it's going to be fun. It's colored. They're going to be colorized because I'm going to make stickers with them. I found some more good videos for that. Anyway, that's it. Any questions you have, please, please, please email me. Go on my Twitter. I would say my Discord is probably your best bet. But if you don't like Discord, I am on Twitter. You can message me there. You've got some ideas. You've got things you want to chat about, whatever. I'll answer them. It might not answer right away, but I will eventually answer them. All right, I'm out of here. Peace. Have a great week, guys. See you next time.